folks next door to tell them that we're over here?
I think Michelle put the sign.
Okay.
We're gonna
All right,
propose.
thank you.
And I mentioned it today, that's why
Remember, he said he goes making it.
All right, well, we're gonna get started because I want to respect your time. I want to, first of all, introduce myself for those of you that haven't had the chance to meet personally. I'm Charles Moore, Mayor here at City of Irondale. This is one of several that we have already done, these town hall meetings since I've been mayor. I think this is the third one over the course of the last year or so. We plan to do them regularly, and let me tell you the intent of it. Lots of people ask me, do you have an agenda? What's the agenda? I haven't seen the agenda. You know, where's the agenda on it? There really is no agenda on it. The agenda on my part is I want to hear from you, and I want the city councilors to hear from you and hear what you have to say. So we hope that it's more you talking and us listening than us talking. There obviously will be some talking. I'm going to start out, when I start this, I'm going to take the first 5 or 10 minutes because there's an overview that I want to give you that I think will be helpful for us to set the stage on some of the topics that you will have interest in tonight. So that's the plan. Having said that, I'll make a couple of introductions. I'll ask the council members first to introduce yourselves. If you'll just stand up wherever you are, raise your hand and introduce yourselves. All right, right here.
I'm Terry Bearden, Council President Pro Temp, and I represent District 4.
Okay.
Steve Marino, District 3.
All right, Steve.
David Spivey, District 2.
All right. That's 3 of our counselors. Are the other 2 here? Okay. All right. All right. Then we have some of our department heads here. I'll ask them to quickly introduce themselves. So if you have questions specific to what they do, you can catch them afterwards. Wherever you are, please raise your hand, stand up. We'll start with Chief over here.
Chief Atkinson, Chief of the Police Department.
Okay, next. Who's next?
James Stewart, City Clerk.
Okay, James back there.
Frank Kennington, Public Works Director. Brad Doss, Interim Fire Chief.
All right. And they're from,
Melanie Poston, Court Supervisor.
okay. Anyone else that we're missing? Okay, so that gives you an idea. You can kind of tell where they are and what, and they'll be, some of them may be responding to some of your questions tonight, okay? So that's the point. All right, I want to do, and I don't want to insult anyone, but I want to do a very simple political science 101 to start with, okay? And the reason I want to do that is because there's lots of misconceptions out there about how we operate and how we go about what we do. I get a whole lot of credit for things that I don't have direct control in, and I get a whole lot of blame for things that I don't have direct control in. Okay, so I want to try to set the stage for who does what, okay? So please bear with me. If you can see the screens there, I understand the print underneath might not be quite as good, but I've got here 2 points, 2 bullet points, the role of the council, the role of the mayor. The role of the council essentially is they are the legislative body of the city. You have elected 5 councilors to be your representative, to legislate, to pass resolutions and ordinances that control what we do and what we are as a city. So that's really their primary objective. They issue directives through passing those ordinances, which is equivalent to laws. It's the city law, the ordinances that they do. And the resolutions that give direction about how we're to go forward in that. All of their action is taking place, has to take place in public meetings and by a vote. So if you talk to your council member and he promises you the sun, the moon, and the stars, it really doesn't mean anything until he gets up here with his other 4 colleagues and they vote by majority to give you the sun, the moon, and the stars, okay? So just keep that in mind. That's how they work. When they are out there on their own, they are just like you and me. No more powerful, no less powerful. But as a body, they represent all of us. And they pass the ordinances or the laws, and they pass the resolutions, which leads to the role of the mayor. The mayor has a voice in all that goes on. I can talk to it, I can speak to it, just like you can. But I can, because of my role, I can specifically talk to the council, speak to the council. I can present my views, my ideas, and all of that. I can present resolutions for them to consider, or ordinances for them to consider. but I can't pass them. So I have a voice in my role as mayor, but I have no vote on council actions. I'm just like the rest of the residents of Irondale. I have no vote on any action that they take. My role is then to take what they have decided, then it becomes my role to implement it, to put it into action. So when they pass an ordinance, a rule, a law, a resolution, it comes on to me, to my office and my desk, and it's my responsibility then, through the great employees that we have, to implement what they have directed. Okay, make sense so far? And then I manage the staff and the operations, and I can provide strategic guidance, oversight, vision, and try to help guide the city, but I have no vote. I only have a voice. I use that voice as best I can, but at the end of the day, it's 5 counselors up here, a majority, 3 or more, make the decisions of where we go, which direction we go. Does it make sense? Any questions on that? It's very simple, really. Very much like other levels of government, but just at the municipal level. All right, next. I want to give you a little bit of history, okay, because I think this will help. There's lots of stuff out there, lots of misconceptions. A lot of you, how many of you are on Facebook? Let me just ask you a question. Okay. Let me give you one important concept of Facebook. Not everything you read on there is true or accurate.
Here, here.
Okay? Not everything you read on there is true or accurate. Let me give some of you a little additional advice. Not everything you post is true or accurate. Okay? I gave someone my card today and said the next time you want to post something about me, it's got my cell phone number on here. Before you post it, call me and I'll give you the facts so that you don't have to make up stuff. Okay? So, I want to give you a few facts, okay, about the city and historically about the city. The city, and this is not to be critical of any predecessors or anything, it's the fact of where we are, okay? We've lived beyond our means and we've incurred debt. We have a total, as a city, we have a total of over $56 million in debt. All of that debt was incurred prior to this current administration, the people who introduced themselves to you. All of that debt was incurred prior to 2016, November 2016, when this administration took place. Payments for debt are paid out of the general fund and total approximately $4.15 million, $4,150,000. That's paid out of our general fund budget. So we got 16, how much, James? 16 million? $19 million budget? 18 million. So not quite 25%, 20-some% of our budget, our general budget, goes to servicing debt from the past. Okay? As currently scheduled, all city debt is scheduled to be paid off in 2036. Where will you be in 2036? Oh, well, Tony, don't answer that. But that's the schedule as of for now. Debt, what was the debt used for? Quite honestly, when I ask that question, I get the answer of, well, we don't really know. And the reason we don't really know is because some of that's been financed, refinanced, and rolled into others and that sort of thing. So we don't really know, but generally, the answers that are given are land for Trinity Hospital, economic development, incentives for Automall, Mercedes project, incentives for Trinity that did not come, infrastructure, roads, and water lines, capital equipment for departments, that sort of thing, okay? That's just general, I will tell you. No one can pinpoint it at this point. During the 5-year period, 2012 to 2016, the city only generated more revenue than expenses. You know what that means, right? That you live within your means, that you at least have as much income as you choose to spend. During those years, 2012 to 2016, the city only generated more revenue than expenses 1 year out of those 5 years, excluding borrowed money. Now, government is unlike business. I learned this my first few weeks on the job here. Things that you would do or not do in government, you can or cannot do municipal, I mean, in business, you can't do, or you can do in government. And I learned that. So there's some special rules for governmental accounting. One of those rules is, if you borrow money, that's recognized as revenue. So when you see a financial report and you see that the city was positive, you need to look at the debt that was borrowed, the money that was borrowed, because it shows up as revenue on the balance sheet. So it's like, you know, you say, okay, I make $50,000 a year, but I'm gonna spend 60, so I'm gonna go to the bank and borrow 15,000. So I spent all that money and I still have $5,000 left over, but you really didn't have 5,000 left over because you borrowed 15. See what I'm saying? So during this 5-year period, only 1 year without, if you take out the borrowed money, only 1 year did the city generate more in taxes, license fees, that sort of thing, revenue, than they spent. All right, next one. Current administration, we began in 2016, November 2016. During the past year, we've taken on 0 debt. We've not borrowed any money. It's a good thing. Yeah, that's a good thing. So we borrowed no money over the last year. An additional $1.3 million in debt obligations from the past administrations were uncovered last year. There were 2 big things that we uncovered last year that went back to past administrations, somewhere in the past, some of it as far back as 2002. Went to past administrations, $1.4 million that we had to pay, that the city became aware of last year that they had to pay. We paid off, let's see where we're at. We paid off $840,000 of that, and we have terms on the rest of it to pay off over the next couple of years. So that was a struggle that we had last year. As we come in, we had a budget, but in addition to that budget, we found that we had an additional $1.34 million in debt or obligations that we had to pay. Fortunately, we were able to end last year positive with no borrowed money, including the $840,000 that paid off, and that's a result of really a miracle and God's grace and everything else put together. We found some money that was going to the wrong municipality that our attorneys helped us to recoup, that was in excess of $1 million, so that helped us balance that budget last year. So last year, in the first year of this administration, we didn't borrow any money, and our revenue exceeded our expenses, which is a good thing. Where did I leave off? Some of the cost-saving measures, and I'm going to tell you, you all know, I know the elephant in the room is Sam's left, and then we got the proposed tax referendum that's coming out, which we're going to be talking about, all those, I'm sure, here in just a minute. But way prior to any of that, we started looking at it and knowing that we couldn't continue to borrow our way out of debt. $56 million debt, we can't keep borrowing, we can't keep refinancing and saying that we're doing okay. So we began to try to figure out how can we live within our means, how can we reduce. I hear some of you talking about, well, I'm all for the city doing well, and I don't mind doing my part and helping, but they got to show me that they're making an effort. Well, here are just some of the things that we did over the past 13 months or so. We reduced or eliminated contracts that amounted to $221,000 annually. We reduced or eliminated them. $221,000 annually since November 2016. We reduced staffing costs, and by this I mean simply that we have positions that are unfilled. We have about 17 positions that we have not filled that were a part of our budget, but we have not filled because of the financial future and pressure and all, until we figure it out. We reduced that staff by about $1 million. That's 17 positions unfilled so far since November of 2016. We changed our vehicle policy. It's just a small thing, but little things add up to big things. When I came here, my first day on the job, Frank brought in keys to me and said, "Here are keys to the new vehicle." I said, "What new vehicle?" He says, "One that the council delivered." And, for one of the departments. I said, why do we need a vehicle? They said, well, not only that, but we got another one coming, it's on order. I said, you get on the phone, call and see if you can cancel that order. He couldn't cancel the order because it's already been placed and it's already in production, whatever. We had 2 brand new vehicles sitting out on the lot that were unneeded. I'll just tell you, that were not necessary for us. That's just the ones that just came that week, okay? Not the ones that came the months before, but just the ones that came that week. And we had 3 other vehicles sitting out on the lot that were not being used and have not been used over the past year. So we got 5 vehicles. One of those vehicles I told you that came by $35,000 vehicle, I saw it the other day and it has 1,300 miles on it after 13 months. 1,300 miles on it. Does that tell you how much you need it? Anyway, that's just some of the things in trying to increase operational efficiency. Budget deficit at the beginning of this budget year in October of 2017, our FY 2018 budget deficit was $700,000. $700,000 the council has to struggle with to figure out how do they plug that hole? How do they fix that? Do we go borrow more money and so call it revenue and say, okay, we're good? Or do we figure out other ways to do it? That's still a struggle that the council has to work through. Sam's then leaving on top of that projected cost of $1.4 million in revenue annually. We estimated that approximately $900,000 in this fiscal year that we will lose from Sam's for the remainder of 2018. So a total projected FY 2018 budget deficit as of this month, January, $1.6 million. That's where we're at, $1.6 million that these council members that introduce themselves to you, that have to struggle with and have to figure out how they balance that budget. How do they balance that $1.6 million deficit? Okay. You all know that the council, prior to Sam's leaving, prior to any knowledge of that happening and that extra $1.4 million that was coming in, the council had already decided they were going to have a referendum on it. They were going to allow you to decide whether you raise property taxes 6 mils, because that's the amount that's allowed by law. Tuesday, April the 10th, 7 a.m., 7 p.m., here in this room right here, you'll have an opportunity to voice your opinion on whether that's important or not. You can take all this stuff we talked about tonight and all of the stuff that comes on Facebook, all the research that you can do, and you come in here and you'll make hopefully an informed decision as to what you do on whether that's important or not. Whether it's important to increase 6 meals, we'll talk about what that means a little bit, in taxes on your property, right? A vote for the initiative will increase the municipal property tax by 6 mils. It will produce a projected $900,000 in revenue, which is broken down roughly by 1/3 residential and 2/3 commercial. In other words, if you own commercial property, all collectively the commercial property, the rate's the same, but the collective portion of that $900,000 is about 2/3 from business or commercial property, 1/3 from residential. What will it be used for? Generally speaking, it'll be used to support Irondale on the Move initiatives, and if you're familiar with that, we have links to that plan. It's a comprehensive document that the city spent a couple of years working on to say these are the things that are important to the city of Irondale, and we'll be talking more about that in more detail. Just to roughly tell you, so you know before we begin our discussion, the example is on $100,000. You can calculate it out based on your house. But if you lived in a property that was assessed by the county at $100,000, cut through all the easy math there, the answer is it would increase your taxes by $60, which is equivalent to 17 cents a day. $60 a year on $100,000. So if you happen to be one of the fortunate ones that live in a $300,000 house, how much would you pay? $380. See how simple the math is? Really simple. So, all right? That's it. That's my introduction, but I thought it was worthwhile to take the first few minutes of this to kind of give you some of how government works, some of the history of how we got to where we are, and then the opportunity for us to move forward. Now, You can start at any one of those points or anything that I haven't even mentioned. Here's the thing, we will be civil. It will not be a debate. It will be a time for you to give us input, to ask questions. If we don't know the answers, we're not going to spend a lot of time on that, but if we don't know the answers, we'll make the note and we'll find out the answers, okay? So it is an open forum for discussion. Yes, sir. Raise your hand.
What's the city's bond rating?
Let me back up first. Would you please introduce yourself and tell us where you live, just generally so we know?
Don Statham, Branch Mill Crossing.
Okay. Mr. Say, neighbors up there. All right, what is your question now?
What is the city's bond rating?
City's bond rating, I'm going to defer to James Stewart, who is our city clerk, who handles that.
The city bond rating is double A.
Double B?
Double A.
Double A.
Double A. So the question was, what is the city's bond rating? It is double A.
Based on the last time the city borrowed.
Yeah, and I won't ask anyone to explain what double A is. Who had a hand up over here? Yes, ma'am. And your name?
Cheryl Jenkins, I live at 5184 Crowley Drive.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, with the 6 mil property tax, estimated revenue coming in at 900,000 and would fill in the hole for the 900,000 left by Sam. And that would give 1.4 million, for revenues, but the debt servicing is 4.15. So that leaves about 2 and something, little over 2 million that the city needs to find a revenue source. What are your plans to find a revenue stream that will fill that, because you won't be able to service the debt? It'll fill the plug up with Sam left, but it doesn't look like we will,
Okay.
service the debt.
I got you. Okay, good question. The pieces were a little bit off, so let me just say, is the 4.1 million that is debt service that you referenced there?
Yes.
That is already a part of that budget, so it is already a part of the overall number. So that's not in addition to. So really the number is 1 point, do the math here, 7, and what was the number of the total value? 1.6 million. 1.6 million is the deficit that we've got to plug. So if you take that number, and if you generated 900,000, and let me just tell you, the tax revenue from this tax referendum won't impact this fiscal year anyway, because it will not be recognized until at least January of 2019. So, but let's just say if we were in the same predicament this time next year, it would offset it by $900,000. So we still got to deal with the $1.7 million projected deficit this year without the tax referendum, without the tax increase, because it won't come. You know, by time the tax is voted on, if you approve it and it's collected or assessed and started. Get billed in October, you make your payment in December, it'll be dispersed to the city sometime after the first of the year. So it will help us long term, but it is not a short-term cure-all for what we're doing. So there is a distinction there. Thank you for that question, though. That was a good point. I saw somebody back here next.
Hey, I'm Patricia Rowe, and I live on 15th Street South, and I have a couple of neighbors. We came home yesterday and had, you know, little stakes that said, what was it?
ROW.
ROW in our yard.
Right.
So what are y'all doing on 15th Street? None of the whole street knows nothing about anything that's going on.
And
So are y'all,
it's not just 2 or 3 feet,
That's
it's like
probably-
20 feet
Oh, okay.
inside the
Yeah.
high property.
Is that on the sidewalk? Okay. That's sidewalks. Sidewalks are going in there. That's a grant that an A-TRIP or a state grant, federal
Okay.
funds, I think, that came to the state, where sidewalks are going to be installed through there.
okay, well, so our problem was nobody knew anything about it. We didn't get a note or anything, and here are these things, and all the neighbors were like, what's going on?
Yeah, they've been talking, let me just tell you
And
this.
it's my fault for not going
No,
to
no.
city council.
Well,
I
it
know.
well
So,
predates me, Bob, I think Terry, 9 years they've been talking about it, and that grant's been in play, and we just got that through just in the last couple of months.
Okay.
So, it's a good thing, it's a good thing, you know, because you'll have nice sidewalks through there, but I apologize that, you know, you didn't know what was going on there, but that is what is happening. Good question. Thank you for bringing that up. I saw this lady right here next.
I'm Cynthia Walker, and I live at 504 Seaton Drive. Okay, you're talking about commercial and residential, that the monies that we may take in. What is being done about, like, every week or 2 weeks or so, somebody's business is closing up? What are you doing to generate something to put in these places?
Yeah, her question is about businesses that have left the city. There have been a couple of notable ones, Sam's Club, obviously the big one, and then At Home also.
I'm talking about down there where that Subway is called Hamburger Haven. All of that is just about a ghost town.
Right.
Not only that, but up there where Chandler's is and that service station, all of that is the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a struggle. I will admit that. I'll defer to any of our council members that want to speak to that, but I don't think there's any easy answer to it.
I can give a little answer on that. That strip mall that you're referring to with Subway in it and everything, someone, I guess the ownership changed, and the new owners came in and dramatically raised the rent. If you notice, House of Vacuums moved from the end to over on the hill. Okay, that was wise because the rent went up, so that's why a lot of people kind of left. So, but thankfully, it looks like we've already got 2 businesses moving in. I don't know much about them.
So is that the same excuse down there by the service station?
I can't answer that one. I'm just addressing the strip center.
The service station is gone. And somebody tried to come in and
You're talking about where?
do it.
You're
That's
talking
a
about where?
Necco, whatever that is
yeah.
right there.
Yeah,
Somebody
someone
came
has
back and tried
bought,
to.
right, someone has bought that strip mall, they're refurbishing it. We've met with the owner of it to talk about some different opportunities there. There's a business that has committed to go into some of that space. We'll see. I will just tell you, I don't like to tell you that someone's coming until I know that they're coming, because I've heard that all my life. You know,
Well,
we're gonna get
another
this business, we're
slide
gonna
too
get
is
that
right
business.
there where Habitat for Humanity, nobody has done anything with that Gold Road.
The Gold
and
Road
that
building
Mexican
and the pet,
restaurant.
the
All
super
of that
pets.
is just
Right, super
idle.
pets. Yeah, what you have to understand on that, just kind of like you said, all of that property is privately owned. The city doesn't own it, so it's not a thing that we can go in and we can force someone to do. We can't tell someone that they can't buy a shopping center and raise the rates to whatever they want to raise them to, if they can get the money or not. So some of that is out of our control, but we can certainly try to work with those owners. I have met with the ones at the one shopping center that you talked about, and I think they are trying to bring some good things in there. They're not all there yet, but I think, I do notice that they're doing work on the building and it looks better. So hopefully that will help. Next, who have?
Hi, I'm Allison Washington. I live in Overton Crossings. You had mentioned earlier in your presentation that there were 17 positions that are not currently being filled with several departments. I'm just curious, which departments in our city are lacking? Is it police officers? Is it sanitation? I mean, are we in desperate need of needing more people to help with the basic functionings of the city? And will this property increase? Is that money designated to possibly fill those positions? And can you just touch on that a little bit more?
Sure. Yeah. So I said that there were 17 positions that are currently not filled. Now, not all of those will go unfilled forever because we have to have something, which is the heart of your question, I think.
Yeah.
It really touches pretty much all operations of us. The biggest department in terms of number of people was Public Works. I think there were 9 positions in Public Works. That's the people who keep the streets clean and pick up the garbage, who weeding on the highways, do that kind of stuff. So there were 9 positions there. There were 3 positions in the police department, and 1 in the fire department. There's is that it?
Admin.
And, oh yeah, admin, just to give you, admin is a great example of what we did. We took 2 people who were in just admin, working over here, moved them over to revenue when 3 people left, 3 people who took other jobs left. We hadn't fired anybody in a sense in that situation, but 3 people took other jobs, left revenue vacant basically. We took 2 people and replaced 3 people and haven't replaced the 2 people who were back here. So that's just kind of an example of trying to be efficient with our resources. I will tell you that there's not much more of that to do. I mean, when you talk about 17 positions, there's not a lot more to do. I mean, we've got departments working short staff.
So the city is in need of help, we
Absolutely.
don't have the money to hire
Yeah.
more people
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
Is that money gonna go towards that?
Well, we hope so. I mean, if you all approve it, those 17 positions are budgeted positions, so they're in that $1.7 million deficit there. They're budgeted, they're just not filled, right? So, it doesn't really matter what your budget is if you don't have the money. You understand what I'm saying? So, I mean, the council can pass a budget of $100 million, but if they only got 19 million, that's all that's gonna get funded, you know, so. All right. Yes, ma'am.
Regina Bearden, I live in the Hampton Place area off of Overton Road. Could you explain to them how the incentives for the Mercedes plant is, not plant, but the dealership is working? I've had that question asked of me, and I don't understand it myself, so.
Okay. All right, well, maybe one of the counselors, well, you're the only one that was here. But generally, let me tell you what I did when I came in, the change from what Terry may share with you, what I did when I came in, as I said, we can't afford to take on projects that we don't have the funding for. Now we can work out rebates with you if it incentivizes you and helps bridge the gap to get your business in Irondale. If you're going to produce income for us, we can do a revenue sharing, meaning like if it's a retail sales and we're collecting 4% of the sales tax, then we can split that with you for 3 years or 5 years or whatever to make it possible for you to get set up and do business here. We took on some projects in the past that they said, let's share the cost. You know, let's have this business and this business. There's a realignment of a road out at 459 in Grants Mill that's happening right now, and perfect example. And the city and the pastor said, we'll pay a third of the cost. We think it's going to be about $300,000. And you know, then that was among 3 different entities, the city and 2 different businesses. And when I got here and they gave me the estimate, the updated estimate, guess what? Do you think it was only $900,000? Yeah, no, it was like $1.4 million all of a sudden. We quit doing that. We quit saying we'll share the cost. I said to them, I said, we'll honor that original commitment. Then I went to one of the other businesses and worked out a deal where they actually paid it for us, $400,000. But we're getting out of the business of saying to you that we'll share 50-50 on the cost, because we don't know how much you're going to run that cost up or how much that cost is going to end up being. If we're comfortable at today's terms to say we'll do 50% of the cost and that 50% is $1 million, then we'll write the $1 million check. But guess what? We're not going to come back 18 months later and give you another $500,000 because of cost overruns. Oh, that's your responsibility. You want to?
Yeah, Mercedes, the state allows cities and counties to repay a portion of the sales tax to businesses to lure them into your city or county. And that is what happened with Mercedes. The cost of the building is, what we understand, around $10 million, and that is the contract that we made with Mercedes. They projected a $1.7 million a year annual taxes to the city. The city agreed to repay $10 million over a period up to 10 years. If they didn't make that 1.7 million, at the end of 10 years, we would stop the refunding of the money, the tax money. If they reached the $10 million mark, anytime during that 10 years, there again, we stopped paying refunding tax money. While we were doing the negotiations for that, I ran the numbers using their $1.7 million, and that's based on what they were doing in Hoover, I think. It works out to be paid off in 8.5 million years. I'm talking million, 8.5 years. 8.5 years. And with their projection of 1.7 and that $10 million rebate, in 20 years, the city will bring in revenue between 28 and $30 million off of that one company. So
I'm gonna take your money.
it's gonna take a little while to get there, but over the next 20 years, we'll.
Listen, love it. Yeah, hold on just a second. Love it, hate it, like it. I hear people talk about the car dealerships there and all. We've got to be thanking our lucky stars that we have. Okay. You may not like the deal. I will tell you, had I been negotiating that, I would have taken a little different tack than what they did. But that's just, I mean, there's 10 different ones of us here. That you might have 10 different opinions of how you best get there. So I'm not being critical of it. I'm just saying the bottom line is I think it's going to be a good thing. I think it is a good thing for the city. I think more than the sales tax revenue that they're going to generate, and I think it's going to be good. But I think the impact it will have on influencing others to be out in that area is going to be where we really see the exponential.
Let me add something to what I said. I forgot.
Here's
We will only be rebating 2/3 of the sales tax revenue from that for those 8.5 to 10 years. And the city will keep 1/3 of it. And once it's all paid back or paid off, then we'll receive all of it, $1.7 million a year.
Potentially.
Bob Saunders, 1830 Fifth Avenue South. Just one question, Barry.
Uh-huh.
Is there a yearly cap on that sales tax?
No, 1/3 of tax
Whatever they
revenue
make, so if they have a
we-
really
the
good
city
year,
gets,
we're
and we get out
out
at,
of luck.
no,
we got a
Well, we get
third.
Third.
but-
but 2/3 of it goes towards that 10 million.
Listen,
And we pay off that money sooner.
Listen, I hope they have banner years for the next 5 years and they're paid off and we're done and then we're getting 100% of it. But yeah, so we still have the same revenue sharing, which is I think what you're saying. Yes, sir.
Chris Metcalf, 1849 Crestwood Boulevard, business owner. How long will Mercedes run the other plant? I noticed in their television ads they are now mentioning they have 2 places in Birmingham.
They do.
Because the reason why I asked that is that he's put his numbers down on all of it coming to Irondale. What about how long are they going to keep the one running over in Hoover?
They do have 2. From my understanding, they're going to focus on some different things in Hoover, their truck lines and stuff more than what maybe they have in the past. Service there, even though they've got service up here. I will tell you, if I had a luxury car dealership, if you had a luxury car dealership, where would you look at?
Irondale.
I mean, really? I mean, wouldn't you? I mean, where would you want to be? And so I think they're going to do well there. But yeah, that's a valid point. They kept their Infinity line over there, which I don't think this current group that owns Mercedes. I don't know what the deal is with it, but there'll still be a line over there and a line here. Yes.
What they told us was they were gonna bring all of their Mercedes to Irondale, and they would keep the other brands in Hoover and have their used department in Hoover as well. So we will be exclusive dealers for Mercedes.
Ultimately, I think it will end up that way. Yes, ma'am.
Have they committed to Irondale for a certain number of years? I mean, have they committed to stay for 20 years or?
I don't know what they could, but let me tell you what, as much money as they've sunk in that place out there, they're committed. Yeah. They're committed. Melanie, that's all your hand.
Alexander Gabori at Beacon Drive. Will this information that you shared be available online?
We can put it on there, sure. We'll put it on the website. The website? Yeah.
The tax calculator's already on, right?
Yeah, we'll have a tax calculator on there where you can plug in your actual house value. If you look at your card that you get, you can plug it in and tell exactly how much it costs for you.
Pete Cry, Branch Mill Crossing, did I understand you to say if it passes the property tax, that it'll bring in about $900,000?
That's what we project. Yeah. of which about 2/3 of that comes from commercial and 1/3 comes from residential. Where did I say, Ross?
Two questions. Ross Trail. What is our emergency fund now? We still got 3.4 or something in it?
I'm trying to think, that was just asked the other day, I think it's around 3 million. Do you all remember, Counselor, do you remember?
3.1 million.
Yeah, 3.1.
What is our bond payment on Mercedes a year?
Well,
What I'm
I
asking
guess,
is, how does our sales tax calculate against our bond payment?
We don't have any bond payment on Mercedes.
Where did we get the money to do that with?
well, out of this debt that I showed you up here, this 56 million, that's why,
So we don't have a separate bond?
not a
issue?
separate, yeah. Listen, what happens is you get one-on-one, and then 5 years down the road, the bonds people come in, they tell you what a good deal it is if you
Yeah.
refinance it, basically in layman's terms. And it's no different than what they tell you with your house. Hey, I can refinance your house, you've got some equity in it, you know, your house is worth $200,000, I can give you $200,000, you only owe $150 on your mortgage, let's pay your mortgage off for $150, and you got $50,000, you can go on vacation, go to the Bahamas.
I just wondered how their revenues are gonna pay against what it's costing us.
Their Mercedes is paying up front for their building and construction, and we are repaying through their sales tax.
Yeah, they're getting a rebate.
In other words,
Well, no,
they are
no.
on the hook for their bond issue.
Right.
For their
financing, yeah.
Now, what about where we built the road and all that?
That's on the city.
That's what I'm saying. What is their tax revenue against what we pay?
I understand what you're asking. Yeah, I understand what you're asking. I don't know if I have the number. James, you got the number?
In 2014, we borrowed $9 million. And $2 million of that $9 million was set aside for Mercedes. We know that the road was $3.2 million to put in, so it was more than the $2 million that we actually borrowed for that. So we do have a bond issue that we are servicing the debt on, that Mercedes is a part of that. The 1/3 that will come in will service the amount of debt that we pay on that bond issue if we prorate it based on the amount that we set aside for Mercedes.
That's what I'm asking. So we got $4 million on the bond issue with all the add-ons, then we're servicing our bond debt with what part of the sales tax we're getting.
Right, but the bond debt is a part of the budget. I mean, when I gave you the numbers earlier, the $4 million a year that we have for bond debt service is figured into the budget in those numbers that I gave you.
But we don't have anything figured in the budget for the money coming in, I mean, is it?
Oh, yeah.
It's
Well,
figured in that too.
we project what we think any business is going to do. And it's just a projection, but we project it's not that much for this year because they're starting late and we're getting only 1/3, but we project it as best we can.
But they'll pay the property tax.
Sure.
If it's 6 mils, theirs will go
Sure.
6 mils.
Sure, they're gonna go up just like anybody else's. Yeah. Who else? Yes, sir.
Hey, I'm Ken Effinger, I live on Carl Daly Road, and my property, Grants Mill Crossing. How often does the state law allow the municipality to have a referendum on increasing property taxes?
Okay, I'll defer to someone else here in just a minute. I will say, I know there's a limit on what you can do. 6 meals is the limit that we can do to have folks vote on. I don't know, I'll ask if somebody else does know how long, but I can guarantee you we're past that length of time because Brad said he went back 30 years and hasn't found where we have had a referendum or an increase rather in at least 20, 30 years. So does anybody know the exact number of years?
Well, the cap is 12.5 mils. That's why we're doing the 6 mil increase, because that's the highest that we can go. Now, we can have another increase, but we would have to go to the state legislators for them to make it a legislative act to be able to do anything above the 12.5 mils.
And then I got a couple more questions. What do you think the percentage what do you think the chance of it passing the city council are?
What do I think?
That's my first question.
I'm sorry, ask the question.
What do you think the likelihood of it passing city council is going to be?
Well, it's not city council, it's you all.
Oh, I misunderstood.
It's a public vote, yeah.
Okay.
Only thing the council can do, they've already done, is they've set the referendum, which says to the people, you decide. So it is an actual vote here in this, I mean, you'll have the voting booth set up, you'll come in, you'll check for or against. And so now I might flip that around and say, what do you think? Are they, no, I mean, it's too early to tell, you know, we don't really
And
know.
then I do have another question you didn't answer, I guess someone asked it earlier about the prospect. I heard a rumor of maybe a Walmart fresh market at the Sam's location.
Oh, for Sam's?
We desperately need a grocery store in Irondale, and it makes sense to, with additional revenue, it makes sense to go after one.
Yeah, let me speak just quickly to economic development, because it's a lot of misunderstandings and misconceptions, and you all probably understand it very well, but I see a lot of stuff out there. If I were negotiating with someone to come there, I wouldn't tell you. Okay? I don't mean that badly, I just mean that that's not how you do it. You don't do it on Facebook. You know, you don't do it publicly. Now, there's been a fair amount of interest, I will tell you that. I've gotten a pretty good number of calls. But do I have anything to report to you? I don't have anything to report to you. But I've had all kinds of ideas from residents as well as people who, you know, are developers or investors or business owners, you know, and different things like that. And it's ranged a whole gamut, you know. I can give you a whole list of types of things that have been suggested or people have talked about. So my answer is I don't know. I don't know what will end up there.
Isn't it gonna be tough to compete with other municipalities if the city's kind of averse, given the financial situation, to incentivize?
Yeah, I mean, our only, and it's really what all small municipalities at least can do is we can do the rebates on sales tax if you're a revenue generator, because if we're not getting anything, half of something is better than all of nothing. And so you know, that's really our bargaining chip. I mean, we can try to make life easy for folks. We can try to work with them to make it simple for them to work through the processes and the transitions and the licensing and all of that. But at the end of the day, we can't compete with someone who has a boatload of money to give away, which is why Trinity Hospital went to Grandview instead of staying here. You know, it wasn't anybody's fault. It was just that somebody had more money than ours did, and they used it. I hope that.
Matthew Goodman, Caremark Drive. I have a couple questions. The first one, the city's got a communication problem. A lot of times people don't know what's going on. They didn't know what was going on, even though we did have notices about trash in the dog park and with the stove. Who's in charge of communication? And what's the conversation about how to improve it with citizens? And you want me to weigh on the second?
No, go ahead.
And the second one, so Irondale's had a really, legendary, like wonderful history of sports, and our sports have died. And the newest one was soccer. We had Bullets around for more than 20 years. There's a long backstory with it, but where it's left off now is a negotiation between you and the superintendent of the Board of Education that's been going on for a couple months. So I was hoping that we could hear what's going on with the negotiation. Maybe that's something you can't share publicly. I've had other people tell me that the superintendent's really favorable for having a lease deal or a purchase, but they don't know what the conversation's been like between you and the superintendent.
All right, so to your first question on communication, we don't have a communications person or position. So if that's the question, that's an easy answer. We do not have one. We've got 17 other positions ahead of it that are unfilled, but we don't have one. So that falls on me, that falls on the folks that work here at City Hall, it falls on the counselors that, you know, to get the message out. I would respond just quickly to your question about your example about the garbage. really on that, I don't know what a communications person would have done more. We put out a public notice citywide. It was published on multiple Facebook pages and electronic forums. Aside from going and knocking on your door and telling you that, putting it in your hand, I don't know what else we do. We got one delivered to your house. Whether you chose to read it, here's what I did have. And we put that in the water bill, for those of you who don't know. We put that in the water bill. And I had a handful of people say, well, I didn't know anything about this. I said, well, what's in your water bill? Oh, I don't ever read what's in my water bill. Well, okay, aside from me coming and reading it to you, I don't know what else we could do. So, I'll take responsibility, but I will say that some responsibility has to fall on us individually to be informed, to choose to read what comes to us, to choose to look at it, to choose to pay attention to it. But hundreds of comments. Melanie, I would say, didn't you have probably hundreds of comments on that topic?
I mean, I just want to say the communication thing, yeah, I mean, maybe down the line when we have tons of money, we can have something like that. But, I mean, I find information all the time that people aren't, sharing out there, and I share it. And it's that easy to find it. And if you don't know, find somebody that does. There's lots of people that you can reach out to. I mean, find somebody here, get their number, and call them when you need to know something.
Yeah, I don't want to offend anyone, but let me just say a couple of things on that. Is I hear stuff on Facebook. I will not promise you that I will monitor all the Facebook pages that are out there. If you want to know what's happening in Irondale, the events and those sorts of things, it's all put on the website. It's all put on the website. Every event that we get knowledge of, whether it's a city event or a Chamber of Commerce event or whatever, we put it on there in the order in which it occurs. And so go there first. I don't know where you're going. Go there first. But I will tell you, you can go, I just want to, again, I hope the person, but I don't care whether the person's here or not. There is literally a Facebook page that is, help me with the name of it, is taking out the trash, or is that it? Taking out the trash.
Something like that.
Something silly like that. Taking out the trash. That is set up, if you really have an affinity for it, an aversion to it, that you can go there and you can commiserate with a half a dozen, maybe a dozen people about garbage for Irondale. I'm not joking. I'm not kidding you. There really is one. I saw it the other day about taking out the trash. Who has that much time? I'm going to tell you, there are at least a half a dozen people in the city of Irondale that have that much time. Believe me. Tell us.
So the soccer fields.
Oh, yes. Okay, I'm sorry. Second question. Soccer fields. So the long and short of that story is, again, that's one of those things that I get blamed for, I get credit for, that really the city didn't even have anything to do with. The soccer club, the private soccer club that you're talking about, that is using the soccer fields that was owned by the county, Jefferson County Board of Education, had advance notice that was going to be an issue.
You haven't talked to the superintendent?
I have talked to the superintendent. I've talked to the superintendent. The superintendent, I think, will be agreeable to work something out. But again, if you get the same thing that you had before, then 2 years from now, I'm going to be listening to the same story about we didn't control it, and we invested all this money into it.
Right.
So I think the better approach is for the city to develop their own, as opposed to whatever sports facilities. And we've had this discussion at council meetings over the past months. I think it's perfectly legitimate and right for us to develop our own programs and our own facilities and not rely on somebody else. We're just getting rid of, quite honestly, at least $30,000 a year for a dog park that we didn't own. And, do we want to lease a soccer field that we don't own so that we go back through the same thing a year from now or 2 years from now? Then we can have further discussion on that. But I think the superintendent is a friend of the city, and the city is a friend of the educational system here. I think we have good relations. Where that will end up, I can't tell you at this point. Tell us, I saw your hand.
Yes, I just wanted to make a comment and continue the idea of going to the city webpage, because you're also going to get correct information, not
Oh, thank you, bless you.
misinformation.
Bless you.
You're welcome, my child.
Bless you. I can't tell you how many times, dates, times, meetings, stuff, and I don't respond to it all, because you ask who has that much time, I don't have that much time to correct everything that's posted incorrectly on these Facebook pages. You know, I don't know if I told you all this or not, but I gave my card to someone today who posted. Did I tell you that? Okay. Yeah. So next time you want it correctly, just call me. That's all you got to do. If you want to be first and all, I'll let you get first in line. That's what it really is about for people who just can't wait long enough to get the facts straight. Just call me. I'll tell you what the facts are, and then you can post it, and then you get credit for doing it first and first correctly. Okay? So just humor me that way. Okay? That's all that we would ask. Let me get somebody who has not.
Right here.
All right. Craig?
Craig Sanderson, 3626 Bermuda Drive. With your permission, I just wanted to clarify a couple of things on Mercedes. There was a deal about the road too, and it addresses the question here, what if they pulled out? There was a proviso put in that if the sales tax revenue received by the city did not equal the amount of road, then Mercedes would be on the hook for it. Now, that was only the first 2.4, which is what we were told at the time it was going to cost.
Another one of those that went
Not
on.
the additional million. And also, pursuant to that, I don't know if anyone has looked into it, but there were some provisos with the original engineering company that gave us that estimate, so that they were supposed to go back through and give another plan until they came up with one that made that cost. And that was A.G. Gaston and Company. So I just wanted to throw those out from part of it.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, good point. Ron?
Ron Bishop, 2nd Avenue South. We've got a couple of new things starting here in Irondale. Right here on 1st Avenue South, coming soon, hopefully, will be the Irondale Market. You know, we've been talking about we need a grocery store. Well, it's not going to be a grocery store, but it will carry fresh produce. I'm not sure if it's going to have fresh meats and stuff, anything, but it's a small business. It's right down here on 1st Avenue South. It's yes, it's going to be called the Irondale Market. It was an old house that they've taken and they've redone. So you want to support small business? Go to that business once it opens up. The more people we get in there, it'll be tight because it's not like a supermarket, but it will have probably some fresh produce and stuff, locally sourced foods and meats and stuff and everything in here. As for communications and stuff, there's a project I've been trying to put together for a while now. We have an old sign down here on Crestwood Boulevard that sits on top of a brick statue, and it's rusting out. So it's been, the council has looked at it a couple times of doing something with it. I wanted to put together a community project. Like we did for the benches at Beacon Park, let's together as a community donate money into here and get us a nice big old LED sign. Like if you've been down in Crestwood Boulevard where the filling station restaurant is, they have a huge sign up there where they can put every bit of information, graphics, animations, things like that. Let's us citizens get together, raise the funds for that, and give it to the city to put out a communication sign right there. That way, when you're coming home and going up towards Sam's or coming back into downtown, you'll see a big old sign that says City Council meeting Tuesday night, Spring Festival, Whistle Stop Festival, anything that the city needs to put out there for everybody to find. Garbage ordinance changing. It's there in big, bold color lights.
Party at Ron's house.
Yeah. Party at Ron's house. Cookout. Big roast at Ron's. But that's a project that's going to be coming up, and I'll post it out here on the social media sites and everything. Like we did, like we citizens, we raised the money for the extra benches at Beacon Park. We can do that and not have to rely upon the city coffers in order to get the things that we need in our city.
Okay, thank you, Ron. Let me comment on a couple of parts of that. One is back to communication. I didn't mention a while ago, you asked about communication. Every public meeting, virtually every public meeting, council meetings, council work sessions at least, this town hall meeting, Ron voluntarily comes and videotapes and posts that on YouTube. So if you want to know what's happening, there's your another source of what's happening. And that's where we discuss those kinds of things and announce them first. So you may see it simultaneously with it going on the website. Second thing is, Ron, on the sign there is someone who has agreed to help with that will make your first gift okay, I'm not gonna name that person happens to be in this room tonight. So you can all look around and see if it's your neighbor. But I think we'll help kickstart that as well. So,
Okay. Yeah, and the preliminary stuff I've done, I kind of need a little bit of city help because some of the businesses and stuff and everything, when we say it's a municipal project, they need some kind of official city help in here. So if I can line up something, I'm going to reach out to y'all and see if I can get in a meeting together to put together a plan for it.
Good idea. I think we definitely can do that. I appreciate you taking some initiative there. I saw your hand earlier, I think.
Renetta Brown, Grants Mill Crossing. I know you don't have a crystal ball, but can you give us an idea of what will happen if no is voted on the referendum? What happens if we don't?
Okay, so if no, I'm not gonna preach doom and gloom to you. I think it's already in the numbers though, that you see. There's a I keep forgetting that number, 1.7 million dollar budget deficit the council trying to solve for this year. If it goes into next year, then there's going to be cuts, okay? There's going to be cuts. There's going to be cuts in service. There's going to be cuts in personnel. There's no, you can't lose $2 million and keep spending like you've been spending, which up until this past year has been deficit except for debt anyway. So, I'm not here to throw that out as a scare tactic. I'm here to say that's right. You do the math. It's very simple. You lose $1.7 million out of what you were projecting to have to spend, and you got to let something go. And Terry Bearden would be the first one to tell you, I don't want any staff laid off, but I'm going to tell you, there's not that many paper clips in this building to make up that deficit. There's just not enough of that kind of stuff. So it is going to happen. Bobby?
Bobby Campbell down Overton Road. I'm a numbers guy, so
I know you are.
help me work through this. This $700,000 deficit that we're facing right now on an $18 million budget. In the $18 million is that $1 million of unfilled positions in the 18. So we're really talking about a +3 in actual terms.
No. So let me see if I can. Let me see if I can help you. Okay. So all right. So we had a budget. I brought a budget to the council back in the fall that was not balanced. I mean, our first run at it was just not balanced. I wasn't suggesting they pass it. I was suggesting for them to look at it and say, okay, where do we want to go from here? And it was more than $700,000. It was a $1.2 million deficit or something like that, the first draft of it. Okay, so I brought it to them, had all these positions in it, and some more. And I brought it to them, and they said, go back to the department heads and see where you can cut and where you can trim some more. So I went back to the department heads, and we got that $1.2 million down to $700,000 short by them giving a relook at it and where, okay, I'll just do away with this. We won't do this training. We won't do, this equipment or whatever. Just really down to the bare necessities. And that left us with $700,000 short of balance in the budget. Okay? And that's the budget that the council approved, saying that if we can't find it anywhere else, we'll take it out of reserves. Okay? So $700,000 short on what we projected was going to actually come in. So if everything held true at the end of September, we would have spent $700,000 more than we took in, and we would take that out of reserve.
All right, that was the question. Okay. And the second piece of this, you tie the $900,000 tax increase, assuming it passes, to the moving Irondale forward, Irondale on the move initiative or whatever. How does that interface with the current budget?
Yeah, Irondale on the Move is a comprehensive plan. There's a link to it. We'll give you the website, the link, so you can go to it if you haven't seen it. And really, that's a first start at really tying it to something, because it is comprehensive. It has roads and streets and infrastructure. It talks about in there.
Normal budgetary items that we would face.
Well, yes, and things that maybe have been deferred but have not been taken. Anytime I can answer the question for an accountant, I am just, I am so proud of myself.
You did an outstanding job.
Did y'all understand what was just happening there? He's a retired accountant, and he's asking me financial and budget questions, and he said I explained it okay. I bow down to you, Bobby. Yes, ma'am.
Jenny Brown, Brookmont neighborhood. Are we actually realizing income from the other dealerships at this point? And how much is that?
I don't know that number, but yes, we are, and I'd have to get the number. I don't know.
And when will we realize income from the Maserati?
Immediately. Well, now they start selling.
Mayor, could you repeat that question?
Okay, I'm sorry, her question was, are we realizing income from the other dealerships that are out there? And the answer is yes. I think all the incentives, with the exception of maybe Maserati, let's say all the ones that were there prior to last year, all the incentives have expired. I mean, they're just on whatever the normal schedule is. I'm talking about the ones, Tom Williams, Lexus, Mercedes, not Mercedes, all the ones on that side of the interstate, the original auto mall. Maserati, I don't recall, but I don't think we have, I'm not sure what incentives they have. I'd have to look that up. I don't think there are any, but I didn't want to say that. Do you know, Craig?
I do. What it was is not an ongoing incentive, but originally the former mayor came back and asked us to approve $2 million to the site relocation. And that $2 million was granted is from that previous bond issue that James mentioned. And the deal on that was that what's his name, Mr. Spitzer, was supposed to repay us that from generating the 2 new dealerships, not the 2 that already existed. You weren't supposed to get any revenue from Chrysler or Plymouth or from the Fiat. It was the 2 new ones, Maserati and was it Alfa Romeo?
I think so.
Yeah, the income from that was supposed to repay the $2 million that he was loaned to build the facility. There was no tax break to my knowledge.
Okay, yeah, that was my understanding. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
It's my understanding that none of the annual events such as the Spring Fest, Whistle Stops, Jazz in the Park, Christmas are in the actual budget for this year. Does that mean those events won't be happening?
You are correct in your understanding that they are not in the budget. Whether they happen or not will be up to the council and a decision that, you remember, we go back to the method of government. Those things were things that were left out of the budget, but presented to the council to say, here they are, we're already at $700,000 deficit. On top of this, you've probably got another 100,000 of things that we kind of like and feel good about. Where do they fit in the priority schedule? And that's a question for the council to answer at some point. So I would say definitely some of them will not happen. Some of them may, but that'll be a council decision somewhere down the road. Cindy?
What that means is that if you do those events, you're gonna tack on to the $700,000.
That's right.
So it's like, if I'm in the hole $700,000, I can't afford to take that $30,000 vacation, because I'm gonna be in a hole $730,000.
Unless you try to borrow your way out of it. You're right, Cindy.
Well, now she goes to Vegas and she's lucky.
Who has not asked a question that would like to ask one? Yes, ma'am.
Michael and Markowitz, Kava Landings. Our neighboring municipalities post their budgets online. And when will Irondale be posting the budget? And the budgets remain online, so you can go and retrospectively see how the cities are doing.
Yeah, we can post that online. Is it on there already? Okay.
It's not online.
Okay, all right, we'll check. Who has not asked a question? I want to make sure I get someone that's not. Yes, ma'am.
The new homes that are being built off of Grants Mill, and I think there's a development on Old Leaves, are those, the profit tax from those, is that in your proposed, your projected budget, or does it wait until people sell the houses?
It's a great question. It will improve our ad valorem tax base because you're adding new homes to it. It will not have an immediate impact because it's, At the earliest, it would occur in October, that you would be billed on those if you moved in before October. And the city would begin recognizing revenue in January 2019. So it will ultimately help us, but it's not in the short term, if you understand what I mean.
Are they selling well?
Oh, they're doing great. Price was just here, I think he just left.
105 last week.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's another thing I hear on Facebook about, we gotta clean up our city, we gotta change things, or we gotta do something, because nobody wants to come here and live. I mean, man, sell them faster than you can build them, you know? And so, I mean, you can make stuff up and talk about it, or you can look at what the facts are. The facts are, he built this Montevallo Park over here and exceeded his expectations by about 8 months to a year in selling that place out, you know? And, I mean, I was over at the grand opening over at Grants Mill Valley, the latest one that he's doing, and he already had 5 or 6 homes built and sold, and people living, you folks, y'all live over that way, or?
They're right behind us.
Yeah.
And the real estate agent sold 5 houses last week.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, you know, I'd like to be the realtor, you know? I don't need to live there, I just need to be the realtor. So in spite, again, you know, you have to, I learned early on in this that if I listen to certain people and certain things, then I get a jaded, negative view of what's happening. If I look at what the facts are and the reality is, this is a good place to live. Why did you choose to live here? Because it's a good place to live. That's exactly why we chose to live here. Because I mean, when we moved to this area, to the Birmingham area, we could have lived anywhere that we wanted to, but we chose here because it was a good place. And it still is a good place. And there's still good things happening. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure how to ask it. Have we surveyed the residents in our city, see how many of us are really spending our money in Irondale?
We have not, I don't know any survey, but I do know people that, and maybe it's just because I'm in the circle, that people I see and I talk to regularly talk about intentionally spending in Irondale. But that's, we all need to be aware of that, where we keep it, where we spend it, that's all. Obviously, you have to get it somewhere else. Who has not asked a question? I see some hands that want to get a second one, but we're going to wrap this up in just a minute. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm Betsy Cooper, and I live on Bainbridge Place, and I'm new to Irondale. And I moved here because it was a nice community. I recently lived in the city of Birmingham, and before that I was in Mountain Grove. But I have enjoyed it here. Now, back to singles. I've tried to do a little research of my own to see who owns that property, and I could not find that out.
I can answer that for you.
Okay. And then, when they shut down, of course, all my friends that go there, besides myself, were very upset, and there was, somebody sent me an email or something, and we passed it around and put it on Facebook, but for us to, write the guy from Costco and say, hey, why don't you come here? I mean, but I was just gonna say is, oh, he's not. But the thing is there anything we citizens can do, if it's presentable, that would help as far as putting a bug in people's ears?
May I make one comment?
Yes.
Yes.
What's coming up this summer? An election.
Yes.
Jefferson County Commissioner, do you know who your commissioner is?
Yeah.
You need to find out, because he can be very helpful in helping get business on this side of town.
Joe Knight.
He's up for re-election. Time now, strike the iron, get going, don't wait. And if you don't know him, you need to meet him. But that's one thing, and Costco has looked in this area now for about 8 years or better. They've turned down Trustful, they've turned down Leeds, they've turned down us at one point. My daughter lives in Fort Worth, there's one Costco in the whole city of Fort Worth. I doubt, yes.
Fort Worth has one Costco.
Yes, but it's a lot larger than this one, but it's only one. But the thing is, the chances being, somebody that made a call to Costco said they're not planning to do anything in Alabama to 2019. So, again, and you gotta remember, big box may not be the way to go in this current market.
Okay, well,
And remember what I told you earlier, let me just refresh your memory on that, okay? Economic development is not done publicly. I know you suggested a letter writing campaign. I doubt anybody wrote letters. Did you write a letter and send it? Okay, we got one. Anybody else here write a letter?
About what?
up to, I don't know, it's about getting Walmart back in here.
Walmart.
But let me just say, not just to single her out, but others say, well, I called this one, I called that one. That's not gonna get us business here, okay? I mean, you know, contact your folks that are in elected position, as he said, the commissioner, who has those connections, who can get in there. Because I can tell you, we can pick up the phone all day today and call Walmart, and you're not gonna get to the right person that's gonna be a decision maker on that, okay? So you're kind of wasting your time and effort, and you're, you know, stirring folks up, but, I mean, do what you wanna do, but I'm just saying, you know, I've got a direct connection. Walmart owns the property.
Okay, that's good.
You know, I pick up the phone probably right now because I got a cell phone number, and I call the guy who's the PR guy over that. Now, I haven't been as fortunate to get the real estate people to return my calls yet. So, but I'm working on it. But I'm saying, you know, they don't really need to hear from all of us. They need to hear that, you know, the right people are contacting.
Can I just jump in and say that, from what I understand, the contact is you, correct?
Yes.
So if anyone has an idea, they need to go to you, because you would be the one who would be able to get other people involved and be the authority.
And some
Right.
some have done that. Yeah, we've had
And, well, that's
a
what
number
you
of
want, but that would be, you're asking what you can do.
Yeah, okay.
If you have an idea, want to be a part of the solution, call him.
All right.
If I could make one comment about your comment about big box stores and your comment about Sam's. Based on sales tax revenue, that Sam's store did about $35 million a year in business. The average Sam's store does $85 million a year in business. And the average Costco store does $175 million in business. So, you know,
So when you see some of us, I'll just put us all collected, on Facebook saying, I don't know why they closed that Sam's store because it was always busy when I went in there. The most pertinent comment I got back when I shared that with somebody was that they must have never been to Costco on Saturday. You know, you can't move.
And Walmart's not stupid either, they're not gonna lose money.
Yes, sir.
I could answer that question about Costco. Costco only operates, they were going to build a store in Oxford here, halfway between Atlanta and here. Sam's built that store, which drove away our business from Pell City. And that's how they think. Costco only operates on their card money, their revenue. They work on about 13% is what their income is. They only make their money on cards. They will not build one where they're going to take, like Sam's did here. Then we got 4 Sam's here. We got Trustville and here in Irondale, Gate City, not Gate City.
Lakeshore.
Lakeshore, and also that. Too many Sam's with just one card.
And they admitted,
And it's
yeah.
convenience.
Right.
People there are just convenience people. Costco doesn't want you to be convenient.
Yeah.
You know, if you're there, they're going to go there. That's the reason why Sam's built over in Oxford.
No, and Sam's as much as admitted that they'd overbuilt, you know, which is the reason they closed 63 stores across the country in Puerto Rico, is that they built some too close together. They got too many, they saturated the market. And, you know, and you look at it, it's a business decision. You said that, you know, it's not personal, it's a business decision. They're gonna go where they make money. Bobby gave the numbers on customers.
Right.
And you look at it, and they take Irondale away. And so let's just say they lose 1,000 members. I don't know how many members they have, but they lose 1,000 members from that are members here through this store. 75% of those are going to go to Trustful or to Lakeshore or somewhere else. So they only lost 25%, and they shut down the whole operation. I mean, it's business. You know, it's business, and you just have to do the best you can do to compete in that world. All right, we're just about done. If there is an absolute burning question, if you have not asked one yet, and you've got to ask it, raise your hand right now. All right? Yes, ma'am, one quick one.
Mine is reversed. That Gold Bro still gets to me. It's just ugly. The sign is ugly. And sometimes the footprint of the city that's your first vision of it from the interstate and everywhere, even if the sign just goes away.
And I've heard that someone is talking and maybe has a contract on it, but I don't know anything definitive on that, so we hope so. I agree. Anything else before we go? Yes, sir.
Wouldn't a grocery store bring in just as much tax revenue as this taxing grocery? A big grocery store?
Oh, I would guess it would, yeah. I mean, it depends on how much you sell, but.
The problem with the grocery store,
All right, I promise this is it, okay? Yes, ma'am.
This is quick. Has the council made a resolution or anything about, showing recognition to Jerron Payne since he has been schools in Irondale from elementary, middle school, high school, and he won the MVP defensive player in the college football playoff and the national championship for Alabama?
We have not done that yet. I can't speak for the council. We have not done that yet, but I would expect that that would come as soon as he is drafted. Oh, I know he is. Yeah, you have to be registered to vote if you're going to vote in the referendum. Make sure you're there. Ron, you had something?
just one quick thing about the grocery store. The problem with the grocery store in this area is that you have 5 grocery stores all within 2 miles of this area, okay? Trying to get a major grocery store chain to commit to build build the store, stock it, get it in here is very hard to do it without the number of people living in the city. Now, with all the housing and stuff that's going on, that's going to help. But like I said, you got 5 grocery stores all within 2 miles of this area right here. It's kind of hard as a business person. If I won the lottery and had $200 million sitting in my pocket, I still wouldn't open a grocery store in Irondale because there's just too much competition for it around here in the area.
It is a challenge. Let me ask you just a couple of housekeeping things right now. I'm going to give you my cell phone number, okay? So right before you decide to hit send, if you want to check, fact check, or whatever, I'll help you, okay? 965-9830.
Any hour of the day.
It is on 24 hours a day. Now, will I answer it or not? It is on night mode after 10 o'clock. But that doesn't mean I won't answer it after 10 o'clock. It just means it won't ring. Well, actually, it will ring. So, yes, it's on 24/7. And if you call me at 3 o'clock in the morning, we'll block your number.
One more time, Mayor. One more time.
Okay, 965-9830. I'm one of the crazy ones. I put it on my card, my business card, because here's what I think. I think if you're gonna find me, you're gonna find me. I may as well make it easy for you to get to me so that you're not aggravated when you find me. So that's it. I don't mind you calling me. I don't mind you calling me at all.
And it's also on the website if they lose it or tell someone else.
Yeah, it's out there. I mean, it's out there. Like I said, I put it on. It's the only number I use. Okay. So I hear people say, well, I tried to get in touch with you. I tried to get in touch with you. I tried to get in touch with you. Would you leave me a message? No, I didn't leave you a message. I didn't call you a cell phone. I told somebody that's what I tried to get in touch with you. So, all right, the other question I got for you, that wasn't a question, that was a statement. So the other question I have for you is, do you find this kind of meeting helpful?
Yes.
Do you find the format helpful? I will tell you my perspective is I want to hear from you, so that's why I don't come in with a big agenda. All right, we leave it wide open. When this was first planned, we didn't know Sam's was leaving, so it changed the whole tone and tenor of what we talked about. So we don't publish an agenda for it, but we'll have these on a semi-regular basis so that we can get together and we can talk. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you all very much for taking the time.